And welcome to the Payments Leadership. I'm your host, Adrian Evans, and absolutely delighted today to welcome Rob Howes to the show. Rob, welcome.
Thanks, Adrian. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, as you know, on the Payments Leaders Show, we're about working with decently led leaders who see the opportunities within the payments and the wider financial industry before they then see the challenges. Just a bit of a background on Rob and I. We've known each other coming up to about a decade or so now. We've worked together in partnership on a lot of projects, and there's a number of things I admire about Rob, and I want to really highlight those and bring those out in our questions today. But I think one of the things is he's one of those people who has built a network over the last 20 years in a decency-led way by paying it forward with individuals first, which I'm sure we'll go into in more detail. But without further ado, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about your background, Rob.
Sure. Not sure where to start, but I maybe just say that I've been in technology and software sales for about 3 decades.
Yeah,
So I've worked for a range, mainly American tech companies, because they're the ones that seem to have really cracked the code on growth.
yeah,
Anything from first person in the UK and Europe through to working for companies of around 10,000 employees. So I think my sweet spot's somewhere in the middle, somewhere around the teenage stage.
yeah,
But I've worked across different domains, so anything from networks and security through to social media management, through to
yeah.
data management, and market data. So across many, many different domains.
Yeah.
But I think one thing is constant, and that is you need a sales methodology, you need good leadership, you need good people around you, and have a very strong sense of what your ideal customer profile looks like.
Right.
So yeah, and still cracking on. I couldn't think about doing anything else. Probably not qualified to do anything else, but it's been really good to me, and I've made some lifelong friends and some fantastic relationships along the way.
So just to confirm that the common theme throughout that has been the time I've known you is all about enterprise sales and how looking for larger deals to add a significant value to customers and partners throughout that process. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think you're only as There's a few funny expressions here. Your network is your net worth. I
Yes.
think as long as you treat your network with respect and with kid gloves, and
Yes.
don't burn it, you can go back and leverage that going forward. So I think investing in your network, it's a bit
Mm.
like gardening. You're not going to
Okay.
get success overnight. You've got to keep
Yeah.
watering and weeding and all those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some point in the future, it might be next year, it might be 10 years, but you just don't, you can't think about an immediate response and reward.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. I think we're coming back to that one, but that's been a common theme in all the time I've known you. On Payments Leaders Show, we're about obviously primarily about leadership and good, decently led leadership. The time I've known you, I've seen you being an exceptional individual contributor, sales manager, and then VP of sales. How have you? What's the culture and your approach to leadership to build high performance in a very high pressurized technology and SaaS sales environment?
That's a great question. I think just to frame this up, in
Sure.
terms of kind of how I've developed my own methodology or mindset, is that because I've been one of the benefits of my background is that I've been an individual contributor for
Yeah.
for a very long time, and so
Yeah.
therefore I've had experience operating within environments, either directly or indirectly with sales leaders,
Yeah.
over the last 30 years. So probably 1,000 different sales leaders, either directly or indirectly, whether it's
Uh,
within my team or a different country. But you're having exposure to
mm,
so many people over a period of time. And I'm a people studier, so I
yeah.
watch people behaviors and I kind of learn from that. And there's really two camps. There's the behaviors that I really, really rate and respect.
Yeah.
I've worked with some phenomenal, inspirational,
Okay.
visionary leaders that you would go into battle with. You,
Sure.
you completely trust them, and you're into them 100%. And I've kind of witnessed and studied what some of those qualities that they
Okay.
perform, which are stuck with me. And then conversely, And possibly this is probably more important in my view, is some of the behaviors that you don't really like,
Okay.
I don't want to go into too much detail, but leaders that are more focused about their own careers,
Yes.
that sit behind a desk, looking at dashboards, looking at spreadsheets, never see the customer, and very hierarchical, with a bunch of hierarchy around that,
Yeah.
struggling with that word. So that's helped define me in terms of the way that I operate.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So is it almost you're studying both sides of the coin there in many elements, and almost taking what's motivated you and also what's motivated any other colleagues as well? Perhaps you could break down some of those traits about other things you think actually these are the standout leaders that I would actually follow through and go into battle with and actually want to be part of their teams. Are there sort of three or four ones that really stand out for you?
But there are. So, I mean, I can even see their faces while we're having this
Yeah.
conversation.
Don't
I'm
need
a
to mention
visual
names, but more the
person.
traits if you want to, but names are
Yeah,
good as
no,
well.
no, absolutely. I think some of the qualities that I kind of have observed and have really stuck with me. One is about being present.
Yeah.
So when you're having a conversation with someone, it could be about a customer, a partner, a
Sure.
deal, any. They're giving you their entire attention. They're not on
Mm.
their phone. They're not looking at Facebook or LinkedIn or checking emails. They're giving you 100% attention,
Yeah.
and they're giving you the respect, and they're treating this interaction very, very seriously. So that will be the first one, being
Yeah.
present. Authentic. I know that's a word that's used a lot, but authentic is about people that are just generally behaving as a normal human being in a
Mm.
natural state, rather than
Yeah.
trying to big themselves up as
Yeah.
being, an executive or a senior leader.
Sure.
The next one would be empathy. So people
Yeah.
that really want to listen to what's going on and try and understand people's predicaments. So
Yeah.
it may be that you've got a top performer that's been knocking it out the park for the last 3 or 4 years, but then something's happened in their lives
Right.
where they're distracted, or it could be problems at home or their children or
Mm.
whatever that is, and it's trying to get up to understand, what does that look like, what is the landscape, what are the things that we need to do to accommodate them, to give them some time to fix those problems. So for me those are the sort of qualities
Right.
that have stuck with me. And the final one is about, and you talk about how to motivate people, it's about having that ambition. So, and when I say ambition, I'm not talking about career development, getting promotions. Ambition about, what is it we're here to do? What does
Yeah.
good look like that will make us all phenomenally happy and successful? And it could be, I want to be 300% of quota, or I want to be the first person to do a $10 million deal. It's like trying to set a goal and make people believe that it's possible, and thinking big.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's fascinating because everything you've mentioned there is, dare I say, sort of very human traits, from being fully present to having empathy to also understanding the wider human being as well. I wonder if we could sort of delve a little bit more into detail about the actual the environment that creates. What is the net result of the environment that you've tried to create? Because again, working with large organizations, there's quarterly targets to hit. So how do you try and sort of manage upwards to almost provide air cover for your team as well?
So I guess it's not easy, right? But I
Yeah.
think for me, I try and put it down into some very basic building blocks. So
Okay.
number one, let's just understand what the current landscape is. Who's in the
Yeah.
team? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Who do I need to work with that are going to make us successful as a team? Whether it's customers, partners, or some of the other functions, whether it's customer success, engineering, product,
Mm.
etc. So let's understand what the current landscape is. So that's current situation. Future state, where is it we're trying to go? Who
Yeah.
who should we be leveraging us to make us successful? And for me, one of my biggest guiding principles is around collaboration.
Right.
And I'm talking about collaboration within the team, within the other functions internally within the organization. Let's say you're a salesperson, but we've also got the SEs, we've got the BDRs, we've got customer success, professional services, training, product engineering. It's making sure that everyone is collaborating. So with the more information flow, the more effective and streamlined that you can be, and the more productive you'll be. With the more collaboration, more success. There's a direct correlation. One of the things that's been really difficult to do that is post-COVID, when people have got into the mode of working from home, working on Zoom and Teams, it becomes very transactional. So you've got a Zoom call to talk about a specific thing. You do that. There's no preamble. There's no opportunistic conversation that are going on, and so the collaboration becomes transactional, and it's not very rich and not very fruitful. It's those kind of, oh, we're just, it's one of those coffee machine moments, or we're just going to go grab some noodles. You want to come down, and before you know it, you're having conversations, and ideas will just come to you when you're spending time together. So for me, collaboration at the ground floor level, but also with senior leadership, I think provides a fantastic landscape for managing up as well as across the football pitch.
Excellent, excellent. So the value of relationships is fundamental to cross collaboration, but also managing upwards too. So I want to bring you into some specifics of, look, in the time I've known you, you've been a high achiever and overachiever in terms of every environment you've gone into, and each technology you've embraced each time and seized the opportunity. What role does having an accurate go-to-market strategy and really deeply knowing your ideal customer profile and also sales methodologies, because one of the criticisms often within the payments industry and also within the SaaS technology industry is sales is so often just only opportunistic. Now, we have to be opportunistic, but what can those strategic elements add value?
It's a very relevant question. Over the last few years, I've kind of learned a lot about this stuff.
Yeah.
I think, to your point, the human behavior is to respond to opportunity.
Yep.
And so let's say you've got inbound opportunities coming through your website, or, downloading white papers. So you've got this kind of inflow of inquiries, and our natural reaction is just to go and chase them because that's an opportunity and you don't want to let it go. I think the important thing is to kind of stop. Take some time to figure out what is the ideal customer profile. My previous company spent a lot of money doing the analysis. We got third-party agencies, research companies to kind of look at this. And it was quite a useful exercise because we applied science rather than just looking at the number of leads, looking at the science around the buying journey, budgets, industry pressures, all that kind of thing. So you think about, these are the vertical industries. It might be financial services, life sciences, telecoms, whatever that potentially it's regulated industries. And then you look at the buying personas. It might be a certain level of seniority, at which point it becomes relevant, but then it's across multiple functions. So it could be the CIO and the IT director that might be your core buying persona, but actually people that are head of risk and compliance might actually be on the business side that are going to help you drive the agenda. So the ICP is really important. The go-to-market is then built around that. Once you've got the ICP kind of identified, and then having the entire front office go-to-market function, whether it's marketing, sales, BDR, etc., everybody's aligned on who's doing what in this process. And having that aligned is absolutely critical.
So what would you say to people who say, actually, we can go a bit too far with that, with the ICP, and really just making sure that the science and the data can be over, everybody wants these days, a common term is data-led decisions. The board want data-led decisions. What have you experienced perhaps in a user case of having the difference and the effectiveness and efficiency of knowing who your ICP is rather than just being opportunistic?
Well, I can give you an example.
Right.
So a company that I've worked for in the past built out an entire team to sell into the mid-market.
Yep.
Companies of I don't know, 500 to 2,000 employees, let's call it that. And that's something that we built, over a 2-year period. And it took 2 years to realize that actually this wasn't the ICP. The
Right.
ICP was large enterprise or public sector.
Yeah.
And so we had to then transition those people into different roles.
Yeah.
But it was a huge waste of energy and input. And had we done the science in advance, I think we would have figured out that it was a fool's mission.
Okay. So very tangible benefits from a cost perspective in terms of how much time and effort and frankly wages and resources and etc. were put into that. Whereas a stop and a reflective, and again, I'm getting the sense as well that ICP should be directionally accurate to give us a course of direction rather than actually this is the it's absolutely precise. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, yeah, if you've got directionally, where you're heading, there may be some nuance,
Yes.
and that nuance could depend across different verticals, and it could depend across different geographies. So
Yep.
for example, there may be say that in France, they've got a different culture, different regulatory pressures. Actually, there's got a slightly different buying persona,
Right. Okay.
which might differ a little bit. There may be 2 or 3 people that are common across all geos,
Yep.
but there may be an extra one just on the side that
Okay.
you can't really miss out on. So I
Right.
think you've got to start somewhere. You don't
Yep.
want to. You're not building perfection day one. You
Yep.
kind of want to execute and get going, and then you kind of iterate over time.
Okay. Okay. And in terms of the perhaps going even into more detail there about the specifics, how important is a technology or a methodology like MEDDIC, which starts with understanding the customer pain, identifying the economic buying group, and then looking at matrix, etc. to metrics, to try and data. We live in a more complex world where we're not probably having one economic buyer these days. We've probably got a more economic buying group, and we've got influencers to that. How important is it to have a methodology, again, that's not overly prescriptive yet directionally accurate?
Well, I think the world has changed. I'm back if you think about the 1950s and the 1960s, where you see these old sales movies about people selling cars and aluminum siding and double glazing windows. That was very much around personality. It's people who are extrovert, that are driven, and the thing is, the world is progressing there. So you can't just rely on relationships alone. So the world has become a lot more sophisticated around sales process.
Yep.
And there have been, this, there have been so many different sales methodologies like spin
Yes.
selling,
Yeah.
challenger sales, TAS, Sandler,
Yeah.
value selling. I mean, there's been so many that have been brought to market. For me, it doesn't really matter which one you pick.
Okay.
It's just pick one
Yep.
and run with it.
Yep.
And then maybe add some other bits and pieces around that to kind of personalize it. But it gives you a structure, and
Yeah.
it gives you your kind of true north of all the sort of checkpoints that you have to go through to get it to a successful outcome. Without that, for everything that you're missing, that you're not adopting in terms of a methodology, is adding risk.
Right.
So you're reducing the opportunity, you're reducing the chance of a successful outcome.
Yeah.
MEDDIC, you mentioned MEDDIC. So MEDDIC or MEDDPICC is like the current flavor of the month. This is what most modern SaaS companies are using in terms of the sales qualification methodology. And it's just a checklist. These are the things that you need to make sure that you've got before you can take it to closure. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For me, I think the checklist as well, I always sort of parallel it with a pilot taking off. Yep. I just remember a friend of mine who had a private license, and he just said, look, I was talking to him whilst before we could take off, and he said, there's 34 things I've got to check. Yeah. Number 8 is fuel. Can you just stop talking a second? I just need to make sure that we're not going to run out of. Now, it seems really obvious, but actually, it's just like a good safety check. And I love what you've said. It's actually reducing risk. Do you also feel that having a methodology like that as well helps manage upwards because typically when it comes to an enterprise sales deal, it's going to take a number of quarters to qualify, to manage, and then obviously making sure that the right resources in the right place. And everybody wants to know, is this going to come in?
Yeah, I think, I think it's an important point actually, is that it's not just the seller that's involved. It's you've got the entire organizations looking at this, right? And they all want to help. Whether it's VP of sales, chief revenue officer, CEO, they want to have transparency on their business.
Yes.
The expression, I expect, therefore I inspect, not my favorite expression.
Interesting.
But they want to be able to figure out where are the kind of risks on the deal, which ones are progressing better, where should, to your point, reallocate resources, because that's what it's all about. It's about allocating the right resources at the right time to give you the most chance of a successful outcome. What I've noticed is a lot of companies are now putting MEDDIC and other sales methodology components inbuilt into Salesforce, into their CRM.
Yep.
So you don't need to fill in another spreadsheet or another PowerPoint. Everything's done within your CRM, which helps leadership as well.
And I love the fact you said that as well, because it's not just a piece of admin. It actually helps manage upwards and manage your career and reputation. I think I do like that one. I'm going to use that one as well, if that's all right, Rob. I expect, so therefore I inspect. I think that's a feeling I think many could relate to just at the end of Q2 that we've just come into. So excellent.
Well, it's about it's about winning or failing together.
Yeah.
And it's like, and if we fail, we fail. You're not going to win every single time, but at least let's do it. Let's put our best foot forward and do it as a team, and be respectful of the process, be respectful of the methodology, take it seriously. But no one's going to get into trouble for failing, as long as they follow the process, right?
Yeah. I think it comes back to this fundamental. I'm reading a book at the moment called Black Box Thinking that is exactly about how to embrace failure, but embrace a certain type of failure, which is following an effective methodology and doing our very, very best together. Nobody wants to fail. And I think all large proactive enterprise sales is complex, is difficult. Landing large 7, 8, 9-figure deals is not easy to do. Some people like yourself can make it look easy or relatively simple, but actually that collective effort, and nobody's going to get shot for not doing it, I think is a really important message.
No, I remember some of the QBRs that I hosted. You'd get one or two sellers that would stand up and be really humble about a deal that went wrong, that went south, and they were very humble and said, "Look, here are the areas where I made mistakes.
Yeah,
I learned from them. I'm not going to do that again." What was interesting? So that's great because we're being kind of honest and humble about this stuff. But what it does is it sets the tone in the room for a safe environment, a safe place where people can go, do you know what? Let's just be honest about this. We're all learning together. How do we become better versions of ourselves?
I think you just touched on a really important word there, safety. That environment needs to be safe, because if it's not safe and you are going to get blamed, etc., those admissions of not doing things well, they're going to collapse. They're not going to happen. And you miss out on a collective shared learning there as well.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we're not looking for perfection. We just want to be successful. We want to overachieve on our KPIs and our business goals and have fun doing it.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. That's the whole point of being in enterprise sales, isn't it? So switching gears a little bit here as well is we hear about lots of different technologies and different opportunities within the financial services and the payments industry. And I almost ask, every time I go to a conference, I ask different leaders what they believe that the most important ones are, etc. I'd like to highlight two that I'd really like your expertise or your expert opinion on. Is number one, the use of data moving forward in data and analytics, but also then AI. Is AI one of those buzzwords that's going to sort of come and go a bit? What do you see as the opportunity and the risk attached with those particular technologies?
Well, there's been a lot of noise around AI and LLMs and ChatGPT and all those good things over the last sort of year or two. What I've seen, having been involved in data management and data governance for the last 6 years, and more recently around AI governance, is that the C-suite in financial services is pushing really, really hard on their teams to execute and adopt AI across the business.
Right.
There's a huge amount of pressure to go and drive adoption and deploying this across the business. The middle management who are responsible for execution are under enormous pressure because they are aware of the risks and the challenges of doing so.
Yeah.
Some of the opportunities that I've seen are around, well, we put them in two buckets. If you think about use cases and business opportunities, there's defensive and offensive.
Yes.
So defensive is around protecting the firm, whether it's a bank or otherwise. And that could be around things like fraud detection, fraud prevention, which is a very kind of effective and streamlined way of getting ahead of the problem. Second one is regulatory compliance and risk management. So rather than relying on manually intensive processes, AI can fast track that and streamline that, which reduces the chances of getting a big fine from a regulator.
Yes.
So those are some of the kind of defensive use cases, and then offensive is about making enhanced customer personalization services.
Yes. Yeah.
So by getting a customer 360 view gives you an opportunity to go, well, actually, now I've got a much richer view of my customer. I can now be a lot more relevant in terms of selling new services, personalizing and customizing products and solutions for that individual customer. Not to mention marketing opportunities. So, but those are what I'm seeing in terms of use cases. I think we'll see more around kind of algorithmic trading and high frequency trading. I think that's something that's maybe not talked about that much, but I think it's going to be very prevalent. And then think about credit scoring of customers.
Yeah.
So getting that credit scoring done in a much more timely and richer level will give you opportunities to lend more and be more effective in terms of those things. So I see those are the main use cases. I think the risks are significant. I think there's a problem where people are so keen to jump in on this AI bandwagon, but they haven't got the building blocks in place.
Okay.
So the building blocks, not the biggest building block that most companies haven't got their head around, is data management or data quality. So if you've got poor data quality going into AI, you're going to end up with a poor outcome.
Yep.
And that's not an easy thing to solve. A lot of companies are still on that journey. So the question then becomes, well, do I wait until I've got all my data management in place and data quality in place across the firm, or do I take a laser focused view on a particular problem or a particular opportunity, get the data management and data quality right for that, and then leverage AI and focus on the kind of low hanging fruit or the high value activities. So I think that's kind of a trend that we're seeing. What's interesting is you get the C-suite asking middle management to get this done, and what are the answers around AI risk and AI governance and ethics? Middle management call the consulting firms. The consulting firms have got half the picture. They go to the tech vendors to build that picture. So everyone's going around in circles trying to crack the code on this.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting time. I think we're going to look back in 10 years and go, wow, wasn't that an incredible time?
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating what you said there about how you get defensive and offensive. I was at a conference last year, and there was the CTO from a major European bank along with a CTO from a major American bank, and they seemed like they got a really nice combination of combining AI with HI or human intelligence. They've done a pilot where actually the call center was using AI, but the AI would record a summary of the call, and the user, so the actual call center, were able to focus on being present with the customer. Yep. Rather than thinking, I better know this, I better know this.
Yeah.
And it actually led to a better customer experience and, more importantly, more accurate selling of the various financial services that they had. And I thought that's probably one of the standouts user cases I've seen where AI has been combined with HI to produce a better customer experience.
Well, it's an exciting time. I think there's an opportunity for some of these digital native banks or challenger banks who've got
Mm.
less complexity in their
Yes.
IT systems. They've got less geographic spread and different
Mm.
less regulators to worry about. But
Yeah.
they can be a lot more agile and start to adopt some of this stuff more quickly. So I think we need to just watch the space.
Excellent. Well, I think what sounds exciting there, whether it's AI, and that's but the basis of AI is good data. This sounds like the significant opportunities within the sector. So just from my perspective, one of the things I've always admired about you, Rob, is your ability to not just build a network, but build a network in not just not a transactional way, to actually pay it forward, help people consistently. And also, you've done that for the last number of decades. So it's built a pretty formidable network. I've been a beneficiary of that, and when we partnered together as well. I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about, first of all, the genesis and where that came from, and then any advice for anybody looking to build their network? Because as a career coach and as advisor, often people are saying to us, actually, I'm really good at my job, but I don't have a network. And they really find it quite awkward to say, I feel a bit icky when I'm just trying to call somebody, when I'm really just trying to get a new job from them or my next sale. What's your perspective on this?
Well, I guess maybe I'll just give it the origin story quickly. So where did it all start? So 20 odd years ago, I was working for a startup where we had a great product, but very poor marketing, and we didn't have any brand recognition and all that good stuff. And so the very difficult to get meetings with potential customers. So I was very much relying on networking with other startup people to get intelligence about these customers and introductions. So
Yeah,
literally, I'll introduce them to mine, you introduce theirs, whether it's a coffee or a beer, whatever those things.
sure.
So we very much relied on networking to be able to sell software. Um, then LinkedIn came along whenever it did, and I thought, wow, this is taking it to a
Mm.
completely new level. You don't need to go to Pret a Manger or Starbucks for a coffee. You can do this virtually and any time, 24/7 across
Yeah,
any part of the world. So put major focus on building my connections on LinkedIn, but also building groups, so building
yeah,
communities and those sorts of things. So being active in other people's groups, but also creating my own groups.
yeah.
One of which grew to about 500,000,
500,000. Wow.
500,000 members. And that just inspired me to kind of do more of it. And what I noticed was that people were approaching me for opportunities. They were asking me for introductions. They were asking me for help on whether it's finding a job, finding a customer, whatever. And it personally just gave me a lot of pleasure
Yeah,
and satisfaction by helping people, knowing that some of the time it was going to be fruitful for them. So that's kind of where it started.
yeah.
In terms of my mindset and guiding, I listened to Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure
Yeah,
some of your guests would have done, and he
absolutely.
has this expression which is punch, punch, jab. Sorry,
Yes,
no,
yeah.
jab, jab,
Jab,
punch.
jab,
That's it.
punch. Yeah,
Jab,
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 punch.
punch. Yeah,
So you give someone help, you give someone help, and then punch. You go and ask for help.
yeah.
So you kind of got to earn the right
Yes,
to do that. So it's taking um, uh, it's having an equal spread between asking and actually giving
sure.
helps.
Yeah.
Firstly, and secondly, what I've noticed when people really appreciate it the most is when they need help. So they've lost their job, they've been made
Yeah, yeah.
redundant, something catastrophic's happened in their lives. I think that is when you should really lean in to help people
Mm,
because they're the
mm,
ones,
mm.
and not they're not always going to ask for help, but try
Yeah,
and lean in, and they'll never forget.
yeah. Wonderful, wonderful.
The other kind of observation I've had is that it's the people that you expect to help you don't,
Right.
and the ones that you don't expect to help will really lean in. And it never ceases to amaze me how that plays
Okay.
out.
Okay. We've had this conversation before, but I'm absolutely fascinated. Why do you think, why is that in your observation? And why do you think that is? There's obviously some human behavior going on there. What, any thoughts or reflections on, or any insights?
Well, I think, I mean, one obvious explanation would be that that person may have experienced a similar problem recently in their lives, and they're going, do you know what? I didn't enjoy that. If Rob is now looking for a job or whatever it is, I'm going to go out and help him.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of it's down to timing.
Yes.
But I think I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I'm publishing content and commenting and all the rest of it. So I'm in people's mind's eye.
Yeah.
So even though I've not seen them personally for maybe 10 years,
Sure. Yeah.
They're tracking me. It's a bit like Facebook, right? They're tracking you. They've seen I've moved from this company to that company. I've been to Las Vegas. I've been to New York. Whatever my life has been, they've been tracking me with interest, hopefully. And then when you do pick up the phone 10 years later and say, really want to meet up, they go, sure, absolutely, let's.
Yeah. There's a relationship still in play. So just to flip there to the final part there, why do you think that those you expect to help you aren't necessarily the people that actually do? So this is something I've significantly experienced myself as well. So I'm fascinated by this.
I think we should be more empathetic when we are asking for help.
Okay.
Because you might need help. You might need to find a job. You might need to find a customer. Whatever the help you need, the person you are asking, they may be a great personal friend or a relative or whatever. Don't assume that they're not going through their own challenges.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay.
So a lot of it's about timing. They've got to be ready, willing, and able to help.
Brilliant. That's a great context. That's a really great context to widen that perspective and enter in other people's worlds. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Rob, thank you as ever. Normally I sort of this is where I sort of wrap up and try and make some further insights, but I've got a number of pages of notes here. I wonder if I could just sort of summarize our conversation, and would that be okay with you?
Sure.
I think the first piece for me was just in terms of the traits that you admire in leadership, in terms of the very human traits there, in terms of somebody being fully present, somebody giving their care and attention to you, as well as having an empathy and also wanting to care about you as well. But really trying to create an environment where we've got psychological safety as the basis before we start looking towards high performance. That leads to better sharing of ideas and to different perspectives. We then moved on, I suppose, to some sort of harder elements then of the enterprise sales process and the value of knowing your ideal customer profile and then also having an effective go-to-market strategy. Love the case. Well, don't love the case study UK, but the 2 years where you're actually going after the wrong marketplace, the level of wasted resources in that place. And also then, more specifically, I like the flexibility. You said, look, there's many sales methodologies. Choose the one that you could probably most resonate with, but at the same time, then stick to that as directionally effective. And I love that quote as well, which is, you've got to manage upwards here, especially in long sales cycles, and expect to be inspected. As an exec would say, I expect, so therefore I will inspect. There's probably a whole podcast we can have on those couple of words. So I love that one. And then in terms of the opportunity, the potential within AI is significant, and it's fascinating what you're saying about, and certainly something I've heard across the conferences. There is a real appetite from the C-suites to embrace AI. They can see the opportunities within that. It is the middle managers who can ultimately make the decisions, and the balance there across opportunity and risk is really significant. But it does come down to really good data and knowing. But I suppose also, as you were saying, it comes down to knowing what you want to achieve out of this as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, then when we sort of look then about something that I think you're a standout at is in terms of networking ability. Three things stood out there for me. I think intention started, which was I intend for this to be, it's something I enjoy, first of all. I enjoy actually giving and helping somebody out. That was a really important part there. Helping somebody out in their time of need, where actually we all know we'll all have times of need in our lives, and it's easy in busy lives not to look at others. But then that final component then about doing it consistently, but also then about that expectation, where actually trying to enter somebody else's world when you've got your asks, try and enter their world first, because a lot could be going on in their world. You don't know whether they've just lost their job, had some difficult family situation. But I think the overall piece for me is, yes, enterprise sales about being ambitious, but empathy, listening, and being authentic. They're the three things that have really stood out in our conversation today. Would you add anything else? Could give you a final word on this, Rob?
I think I completely agree with everything you've said. I think one element we probably haven't touched on, which is a little bit different, and that's about accountability. And as well as being empathetic and present and authentic and having a space, I think it's got to be balanced with accountability. As a leader, you're accountable to the organization about delivering your business goals. You're accountable to the relationships with partners. You're accountable to the other team leaders across the business, and the salespeople are accountable for delivering on their goals as well. So I think there's a balance between integrity and accountability.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that across the balance to be struck there. So, as ever, I knew our conversation would produce many insights. So thank you very much. I do really appreciate it, and I wish you well in your continued success and in your career. Thank you.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. Appreciate it.